Hi everyone, it's Mary here in Markry Woolcraft again this morning, and today I'm going to do a little demo of washing wool. Now normally I do it outside in rather a messy place. Today I'm just going to use my indoor sink in my washroom to wash a small quantity, much smaller quantity than I normally would wash. Now the system I use for washing wool is a hot water one, and this is a way I would wash wool and mohair. Both of those can be washed in this method. You need very hot water. It needs to be at least 38 degrees centigrade or 100 degrees Fahrenheit to dissolve the lanolin in the wool. And we need to remove the lanolin. We need to remove the lanolin from the wool so we can dye it, and it's just easier to prepare. If you leave the lanolin in the wool, although some people would wash, would spin, we call in the grease. It is very smelly, and also all your equipment gets covered with oil. Now I'm washing it in my sink, and this is going into our storage treatment plant. And just a word of warning, that you want to be very careful, because this can clog up your drains. And many people would do it in a big basin and then pour the water out into the ground and not clog up the drains. Now I'm keeping kind of an eye on it, and we have our own sewage treatment plant, and when the guy comes to service it, I check with him that there isn't an overload of grease or something in it. And so far I've been doing it for years and I haven't had that problem. But that is a warning that most people would decide not to do it straight into their drains. We don't use much oil in our cooking, and maybe that's why it's okay. So that's very hot. I have to wear gloves because I can't actually keep my hand in there, because it would burn. So now I'm going to get the wool in next. That's just plain water. I'm going to get some wool. This is actually some Jacob, which I have vaguely picked over, removed a few of the pooey bits and stuff like that, skirted it basically, and but it is got a bit of veggie matter in it, because it must be, I think it was shorn a little bit onto dirty ground. It's a lovely colour though, just love that. The grey, that's what we call lavender, that lovely grey, and it's not common in Jacob sheep. They're normally dark brown or black and white. So this is a nice, as you see, there's a more normal colour. So we'll just put in a good bit into that. I can put a good bit of this in here for one reason really, is that it's Jacob, and Jacob does not felt that easily. But if you had something like merino, you'd want to leave it very, very, very little wool in here, so that it's all very open, because merino wool, I say, felts, if you look at it. We don't have merino sheep here, so I don't have a problem. So there, you can squeeze it down, and you can see the dirt already coming out. Now I've got to put something to wash it with. I use this. This is pH neutral, and it's basically it's used as either a shampoo or for washing delicate fabrics. But it's used as a shampoo for preparing animals for show. So we'd use it on the horses and cattle to wash them for the show. There we are. Now just squeeze it down, don't do too much agitation. And try not to make too many bubbles, as I'm making loads of bubbles today. You'll notice that I have A, filled the sink first, and B, put the washing stuff in last, because you do not want bubbles. If you put the washing, which you're going to wash the wool in with when you're filling the sink, you get a mass of bubbles, and they're really difficult to rinse. So try to avoid bubbles. You can use washing up liquid, you can use shampoo, you can use any animal wash. And if you go into the pet shops, you see dog stuff, you see horse stuff, any of those do. Lots of people just use ordinary washing up liquid. But I find washing up liquid is quite abrasive. It removes all the oil from the wool. And I reckon that wool needs a little bit of oil left behind. I think it's a bit like our hair. If you wash all the oil out of your hair, it's like it's really hard and, you know, horrible. And it's the same with wool. The wool with a little bit of oil in it is that little bit softer and pleasanter to use. And you obviously don't want to leave too much in, or as I said, it won't dye and won't take the dye, and it clogs up your machines. So this is just the leftover stuff. I have to go back out with that in a minute or two. Oh, there, keep it dry. Right, okay. So now I'm going to leave that for 30 minutes. Don't leave it any longer, because if the water gets too cool, what's going to happen is your lanolin is going to go solid again, and that really is not good. The melted lanolin that's gone solid is really hard and difficult to dissolve or to soften again. So 30 minutes, and I usually time it. Okay, 30 minutes up. I'm just going to give the wool a little bit of a push around again, and then remove it from the water. Now, washing wool does not remove any of what we call the VM, the veggie matter. It's not removed by washing. Taking all the wool out of the water, and you can see that the water is pretty dirty and cloudy. The cloudiness is basically the lanolin under the sink. And while we're waiting for that to empty out, you can see the tips of the wool are a bit muddy. So I kind of just open those out, encourage the dirt to fall out. It's not the end of the world if the dirt doesn't fall out. It does stop the dye being taken up by these tips, but if it's like that, I might just pull out. But it will, when you're working through, as you're working with the wool, this will fall out even as when it's dry. Because there's no lanolin to hold it there. All the bits come out, and then we fill another sink of water with a little bit of cold in it this time. So there's still another sink of water with the water approximately the same temperature as the water was when you took the wool out. It certainly doesn't want to be a lot colder, because if you plunge your wool from hot water into cold water, it will felt. Because what happens is the fibres are opened up when the wool's hot, and when you throw it into cold water, they close up and they grab onto each other. Because wool has these little, each fibre has little hooks on it that are part of the way it cleanses the wool. The sheep cleanses itself. These little hooks that face up the wool towards the tip. And they're what open, and they're what close to felt your wool, partially what felt your wool. So as I said, this is not a very easy breed to felt, so it's quite safe with it, really. Not going to have a disaster, we hope. The next, I'll probably do another video quite soon on washing alpaca, which is totally different. So do not do this with your alpaca wool, or you will end up with a lump of fibre. The only way in commercial wool, commercially produced yarns and things like that, they actually treat the wool with an acid, I think it is, that will dissolve the veggie matter. Actually dissolve cellulose, and that gets rid of all the bits of grass and poop. So that's pretty hot now, and give it a good swirl around. So they said if you've got something that's inclined to felt, make sure that you've got lots of space in your sink so the fibres are less inclined to attach together. Out again. And that is pretty hot. Now some people would wash their wool a second time. They would put it into another wash instead of just rinsing like I have. I don't bother, because this wool, if I'm going to dye it, it's going to go through another whole process of hot water and dye and rinsing again before I do anything with it. And if I don't dye it and use it as it is, I have to, at the end of spinning with it, I have to we do something called setting the spin with water, and I would give it another wash at that stage. When I'm setting the spin, I put it into soapy water again and give it another wash. So I don't worry too much about that second wash that we can talk about. And I might, in certain circumstances, if it was only going to be used for something just carded and not used, not washed or not used for spinning or felting, it was going to be used the way it is, maybe needle felting, I might wash it again just to make sure it was clean. But I reckon the wool, you know, that the less you do with wool, the less damage you do. When you're buying, if you're buying a fleece from a farmer, try and make sure that it hasn't got too much veggie matter in it. That it's quite, and it's been, when they shear it, they shear it in a clean place rather than just throw it onto a dirty floor and then roll up all the hay and straw in it. That's important. And then when you get it home, always go through it and take out all the bits that you don't want, all the dirty bits, really poopy bits. Take those out before you put it into storage. There's no point storing wool that you can't use. It takes up space, and also it's contaminating the rest of the wool. So try and do all that the minute it gets home. Throw it up on big tables or something, or out on the ground, and check it over. Now dark fleeces are more difficult to do than light fleeces because it's obviously more difficult to see the dirt on dark fleece. And this is it now, the final rinse. Again, the water's really hot, and I never ever would fill the sink with the wool in it. That's, again, you can felt it very easily. So always fill your sink and then put the wool in. Give it a good rinse. Well, this is my final rinse. And that's where the sun has bleached the tips of the wool. You won't even see it when I've worked it. Now, the next stage is my filthy dirty pillowcases. So just pop it in bunches into the pillowcase. Into pillowcases like that. Now, just a word of warning, even if you're doing a tiny bit of wool at home, make sure you divide it into at least 2 pillowcases, because if you put this big lump of wool, that much wool into your washing machine on its own, it's kind of means it'll spin unbalanced, and that's not great for your machine. So this is the last bag of that wool going into the washing machine, and then we're going to turn on the washing machine, drain and spin. Now some people would say do a slow spin. I don't find a fast spin makes any felts the wool, so that's fine. So now I'm going to drain and spin it. We'll leave that there now. So here's one that I washed yesterday actually, and it's laid out on the racks in our tunnel, our plastic tunnel for greenhouse veggie thing, and I allowed the end of the tunnel for this. And because it's been spun in the washing machine, and then in here it doesn't get the rain, it dries really quickly. So if you've got a nice day, literally you can dry, this will be dry in a day. Just turn it over some stage during the day to let the air in at the bottom half of it, and fluff it up, and fluff it up as you're putting it out. So this is more of this fleece. You can see it's really nice, you know, that's lovely. And this grey is nice, such a nice colour. And I'm going to dye this in the future with, I think, dyers chamomile. A little beetle, I don't know what they are, little dung beetles or something. Dyer's chamomile, and it will take up the dye in different shades, and it's just, can't wait to get my hands on it. You see, oh gosh, not this gorgeous, lovely long staple. Lovely. Anyway, so that's how I dry my wool. It's very handy in the tunnel because it's out of the wind, which of course any wind at all and it's blown away. And it also means if you get a little shower of rain, it doesn't get wet, which if you've got a wool laid out like this, in the smallest shower, sprinkle of water and it's all soaked. So you just pick over it as you're laying it out, take bits out of it, and yeah, dry in the day, and ready to use. So thank you very much again if you've watched this and managed to get all the way through it, and I hope it will inspire some of you to use some local fleece from local farmers.